Good morning, Mid-Michigan, and welcome to another program of Continuous Miracle right here on WGLM 1063. Want to make sure we mention a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there today. Thank you so much for being you. We know it's not easy. Because we all had a mom that we know what we've done and where we've been. So God bless you all. In here this morning on May 11th, beautiful day out here. It's not February. We're still in Michigan and things are getting better.
Hooray.
I've noticed. Got co-host Mike on the show again this morning with us.
Morning, folks.
Right? Dangerous Darren on the dials.
Good morning.
Thank you, sir, for your service. Couldn't do this thing without you. Got a guest in with us again this morning by the name of Jim. And I think you'll enjoy this interview with Jim. I've known you for how many years now?
6 years.
About 6 years. I was thinking 7. Okay, 6 years I've been acquainted with Jim. Mike's more familiar with him than I am, actually. And, it's been fascinating to watch part of Jim's growth as he's come along in the recovery community here in the mid-Michigan area. And it's been phenomenal to watch. But that's part of that continuous miracle, which this program is based upon. These are some of the things we get to see, experience, and witness in the recovery community. And it brings us great joy when we can come to you with situations such as Jim's and show you how well recovery works in the lives of millions of people around this globe. But right here locally, got a lot of homegrown people who have really turned and contributed a great deal back to the recovery community. And Jim's one of those. Mike's another. That makes this such a flourishing community, recovery community, within this area and surrounding areas, our whole listening audience. And hopefully you're encountering some of that yourselves on Facebook. What a wonderful thing to be part of this continuous miracle. So with that being said, Jim, I'm familiar with your experience. I know you were a former police officer.
That's correct.
A director of police, actually, in one of our local communities. And then you came upon Jim one day.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And life changed a little bit. But that change brought you to encounter folks like us in the recovery community. And it's turned out to be a blessing.
Yes, it
Is
has.
that true?
Yeah, pleasure to meet both of you.
Yeah. Mike?
I met Jim about 6 years ago. His NA sponsor passed away. And desperate times call for desperate measures. You need a sponsor, and that's where I came in.
Desperation?
Yes, sir. And anyway, it's been quite the journey following it, going along with this, walking daily with this gentleman. Anyway, Jim, it's on you, brother.
Wait a minute, I'm going to go back to desperation in a moment.
Well, it looks like talking to a guy like this.
Is that what it looks like?
Yes, sir.
Well, get a good look, folks.
Yeah. In AA, they talk about that gift of desperation, G-O-D.
They do.
And he had that, and I was that answer that guy sent.
You recognized it, huh?
Yes, sir.
He gets it right once in a while, too.
Yeah. He's done a pretty good job.
Yeah. So let us know, Jim, a little bit about what brought you to the recovery community so that we could all encounter one another.
Well, let's see here. I suffered an injury as a child that involved the fracturing of 2 vertebrae in my lower back. And I took this police job, and as time went by, I worked a lot of hours of overtime.
I'm familiar with that.
Yep, and the police belt and the vest itself, it does cause sort of the angle of that spine to get out of place for a while.
Oh, you're carrying some weight around
Yes,
there. Aren't
yep.
you?
And what ended up happening was I ended up having surgery. I had fusion for my back, and during that process, began a torrid love affair with opiates.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, pain comes with
Yes,
surgery.
a lot of pain.
Recovery.
Yep,
Yeah.
and but once that pain had dissipated, that desire for that good feeling, it
Escalated.
It escalated. It didn't go away.
And that's common.
Yes.
That's common. I know many people. Well, we were talking a week or two ago about the opioid crisis and how it simmered down a little bit, but so many people were afflicted with opioids as a result of. How did the sheriff describe that? As they're unwitting. They were having surgeries and living life and trying to get well, and next thing you know, they're taking the medication as prescribed, and then they're taking it as not prescribed, and it kind of escalates. It did escalate, and that's similar to what you were experiencing.
Yeah, and I think the most, looking back on it, the most fascinating thing about it is that this is happening, and I'm not recognizing that it's happening.
Right, and you're trained.
Yeah, and
look for
it's
it.
like, well, this can't be what I think it is. And I recall a time where, 6-7 years into it, where I take a cruise, and I'm on the ship, pacing around like a panther through the nights, trying to figure out what's happening.
Irritable, restless, and
Yes.
discontent,
Yes.
maybe?
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
that, and in fact, I think it was a detox process.
Right, and lack of.
Yes, and trying to understand what's happening, and it's so obvious, and yet I can't recognize it.
Now, did you not recognize it, or were you just denying it?
Well, that's the thing is I don't know in the end if what the difference would be. Either way, I
I
didn't,
can agree with that.
I didn't see and thought that.
I would go with not recognizing right up till it became denial.
That's the one right there.
Stuff like that
That's
happened.
right. I wasn't denying it, I just didn't recognize it. No, it's
Until
all
I
making
did.
sense. That sounds like a story you tell the sheriff.
Oh,
Yeah.
And then I did.
well, that's the way it is with most of us. I wasn't until I was, and then
Right.
I was surprised at where I was at.
Right.
You too, huh?
Yeah, but what makes it more difficult too is, I never thought of myself as someone that could possibly have an affliction like that. That I was the captain of the football team. I was the president of the class. I was that guy, and then
And that's the thing with addiction. None of that matters.
right. It doesn't.
None of that matters
Right.
a bit.
Right.
It doesn't care who you were or what you were.
Or your aspirations.
Or your aspirations. Addiction, once we become afflicted with addiction, it consumes us.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of what you're describing.
Mhm.
So then, you're right, well, you cracked the denial code.
Yeah.
Recognize things a little better.
That's right.
And then what kind of took off from that?
Yeah, well, I remember as time went on, I got promoted in the department, became a sergeant, and eventually became the director. All the while, getting a master's degree, being in the Lions Club, having children with sports, doing all those things,
Right.
spinning all
Well,
those
living
plates.
life.
Yes, but
Right.
but what I think is most relevant is that at some point, this addiction becomes so big that there's no room for any of that anymore.
Yeah,
That,
that's what
that
you
it
discovered.
becomes, it becomes the sole purpose for waking up in the morning, and the sole purpose for staying up as late as night as I could to get more, to get more of that feeling,
Right.
So
Which leads to a good pile of unmanageability, generally speaking.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Relationships get sour quickly, become distant, and then with that position that I had, it promoted a feeling of isolation. As these people that I used to work with, I was now their boss. They weren't interested in speaking or hanging out with me.
Really?
Right.
Strange how that
right.
happened.
So I've got this perfect storm of active addiction where I'm isolated and already feeling separate, different, and alone. That didn't help much. So I think that really sort of hit the gas pedal on the process.
Oh, I'm sure it
Yeah.
did.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a desperate time in your life. Actually, when on the outside, everything looks
Look great.
pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah, doing the right things we're trying to do the right things for the right reasons. but masking that with trying to keep that mask,
Oh,
I should
that's
say, and
full-time
suffering
job.
from a full job and
Mhm.
full-time addiction
Yep.
in the process.
Yep. So that it became too much. I remember, being challenged at some point, by the city that I worked in, and asked about my rumored problem.
Mm-hmm.
I put a little shock into their system when I said it wasn't much of a rumor.
Well,
That it was.
did that surprise yourself? That you,
It did.
or
It
was it
didn't.
like a relief valve?
It was an absolute relief valve.
Yeah.
This secret, keeping it, being alone, I knew that it would end that career for good, but there wasn't much choice.
Right, but you hadn't had told the truth about your addiction in so long.
Right.
I can well imagine
Yes.
the relief.
Yep,
that
it was, and we go through things in our life, and I remember, 30 years ago, losing a job that I really loved, and I remember that feeling of, well, I didn't really fit here. There was a sense of relief. Well, that's the same thing where I didn't think this wasn't manageable anymore. This feeling, it was dark, alone. You started
Sure.
contemplating, having these suicidal thoughts, things like that. Because what am I?
Oh, don't do that.
That's
Yeah.
right, don't do that.
That's the alarm.
Yes. So
Didn't I tell you guys to silence your phones?
that's right. It's,
Maybe I should listen to myself occasionally.
Give it a shot one of these days.
Sorry,
yeah,
Jim.
no, it's okay. It's okay. But things had become very difficult, very dark. My marriage was becoming much more difficult than necessary. But and looking back on things, I don't know if I would change the way it went down, because that discomfort was significant
It
enough.
was
where
needed.
I wasn't interested in doing it anymore.
Right.
Losing the job, having to deal with that level of public shame. I bet it was 3 years before I could walk into the local grocery store without fear of running into somebody.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It kind of follows you when you're more of a public figure.
Right.
I mean, and then you come forward. And that's one of the reasons that we have this show, is to help to diminish stigma about addiction, because it can happen to anybody, whether you're the director of police in a good-sized city, or it doesn't matter who you are, or what your position or master's degree. Addiction doesn't care once it's been activated and we start practicing things that we know aren't good for us or the people around us, and we build up and carry that shame and that guilt and that remorse, and that's a terrible burden to bear.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to publicly face,
Well, I was trying to publicly hide.
Right.
I mean, I don't know as if I would go near the windows in my home for a period. I mean, it was that significant. It was, I couldn't sit still. I had a hard time laying down and relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
Until, I really started getting active in NA and AA.
Yeah.
So.
And that was kind of, well, for lots of people, ourselves included, when we make those discoveries that there's rooms full of people just like us,
Mm-hmm.
who having similar experiences or have had similar experiences and got through it.
How'd you find out about NAAA?
Well, after this first hit, I was given a choice by my wife at the time. I could go to detox and rehab, or I could find a new place to live.
Incentive plan.
Yes, an incentive plan. And I thought the best way to go would to follow the rules and let's see where it would take us.
Ah.
So I started to hear people say things like, just do everything they tell you. Well,
Yeah, that's just that's a pretty good refrain, actually, because you didn't know what they knew.
right.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Right.
I didn't. And even now, I'm trying to articulate to people who are on the other side of this, how
Mhm.
this works. It can be difficult because, as one of the analogies I heard was, it's like an invisible rowboat. You're out in the ocean drowning. Someone comes up with an invisible rowboat, tells you to get in. Well, that seems kind of crazy. there's no real structure to this that you can eyeball and say, oh, this is definitely going to work.
Can't put your hands on it.
No, you can't.
Right.
Right. So when you see this program, if you just do what they say, and I mean, even if you have trouble with your higher power thoughts, I don't believe in God. Okay, well that's fine. Why don't we, act as if we do for a while?
Oh, that one.
Let's see
Well,
where.
try it.
Yeah, let's see where it
You're
takes
pretty
us.
good at pretending, so
That's
let's pretend this.
That's right. So with that said, as things start to come together, there is a sort of a period of time where there's this magical feeling that, holy cow, this is really working. And you push forward and you attend these meetings, you get a sponsor, you work the steps, and it's not happenstance or by coincidence that I start feeling better about myself and I don't have shame. It's after I work the step that tells me I got to tell people, hey, I got to take accountability for what I've done.
Sure.
Right?
Did you know that coming in, or did it have to be pointed out to
That
you?
definitely had to be pointed out to me. And then even after being in for a while, I had to be told, that
You get to do this.
it's right. But I told that you've got to go through these things to get to where you want to be. And where you want to be is that happy, joyous, and free feeling, and it comes incrementally, but you arrive there.
It's a process.
Yes, definitely.
Darren just told us that you're going to get a chance to tell us a little bit more about that in a few minutes after we come back.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
we're
you
going to
very
take a
much.
little break here, folks. We hope you're enjoying the
Where are we at?
conversation with Jim and Mike here, and come on back and join us in a minute. Thanks so much for being here.
Our website, our
I'll do
number.
that on the lead-in.
Yeah. Website, phone number.
Yep.
are you hitting
I wanted to get
what
the
you wanted
Mother's
to?
Day thing on there.
Yeah, I do. It's like
That's just a normal conversation.
that's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. But
Community focus on
We-
WGLM.
I mean that though. We talk about trying to explain to people who are seeking relief from this malady that getting this boat to work.
Right.
They just, they all do the thing where they say, "Well, I'm going to rehab." Well, that's
Okay.
great. That's a good start.
Yeah,
that's a good start. But
There's not a rehab in the planet that won't hand you a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous.
right, that's right. But
Sports time, Jason Walker. We will begin in the National Football League.
What we do is like physical therapy after surgery. We got that kind of aftercare where we work. Sometimes we do triage and send them off to treatment,
Yes.
but usually it's aftercare.
Yep.
Physical therapy for the soul.
The 34-year-old car played
You got some different analogies, that's for sure. Because you can't put your hands on it.
It's invisible. Flimsy reed.
you can't, and because of that, first of all, you're probably here because you have a spiritual malady to begin with, right? Okay.
Correct.
So we don't typically have. It doesn't mean you can't be a priest with alcoholism, but typically we have an issue with.
Yeah, we had one on a couple weeks ago. yeah.
Yeah,
30
Episcopal
seconds.
priest.
Yeah. Yeah, they get drunk too.
And he loved all manners of drugs, he said at some point.
Yeah.
Rest of your Sunday, a high today of 71. Clear skies overnight tonight, a low of mostly sunny for the day on Monday, a high near
15
See how that
seconds.
breaks down all barriers of
overnight
addiction.
showers Monday night,
No matter who you are, what you do.
8. Cloudy skies and afternoon showers for the day on Tuesday, a high of 77.
5 seconds.
Now, more of the music you love on WGLM.
She hasn't really hit her stride yet.
Neither have I.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Scott, Mike, and Jim, welcome back. We're glad you're here. I need to make mention real quick before we get back into our conversation about the Facebook. We are available to you, I think, live today. Is that right, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're live up on Facebook today at Continuous Miracle. Put that in your toolbar, and you'll be able to at least see Mike and Jim. Anyway, we are also...
And Scott's elbow.
Yeah, my elbow's pretty good. And then we're also recording for YouTube, which should be up later today. We'll be on YouTube.
Cross my fingers.
If Darren punches the right dials, we should be okay.
I hope he punches the right buttons. Them dials are hard to punch.
Well, go ahead. Good thinking. I'll play with the dials.
Okay.
Yeah, and then our website, of course, continuousmiracle.net. We enjoy you folks getting on there and taking a look at some of the previously recorded shows, and you can leave us a note there as well. Anyone who'd like to call the show is always welcome to as well. It's 616-754-1063, and we're always available for a phone call or two. And with that being said, I want to get back to hearing a little bit more about Jim. And once your introduction was made, and you'd pretty much made a mess of your life,
Yeah.
to put it mildly, you encountered the recovery community, correct?
That's correct.
It was that more a voluntary thing, or were you voluntold?
I was voluntold initially, but
Okay.
but the one thing that drew me back time and time again was the respite it provided from the self-loathing. You know, when you burn some things down and you're at the bottom,
Right.
you know, you start to chew on yourself for a bit.
Oh, sure.
Yep. And
Which is common in that self-loathing.
that's right.
Especially early recovery. Say you're coming out of jail or whatever. You're coming
Yeah.
out of a situation that
Yeah.
you created.
I was coming out of a fog when I got out of jail.
Right. We're just glad you made it. And yeah, you know, and that we look at ourselves and go, what have I done?
Right?
And
That's exactly what you say.
Yeah, that's self-loathing. And sometimes there's an answer for that, but most often not. And I need to start finding those answers. That's for sure. And that's where the fellowship in the recovery community and sponsorship, all those factors have to come in. Or well, at least for folks I've seen in my time, we need all of that.
Yeah.
Before we can even start this process of trying to build a different life.
Yeah, but I think in touching on what the recovery community did for me was provided home, not only a respite from hating myself, but a place where I felt like I belonged. You know, being in a room with people who are suffering from the exact same thing that I am.
Right.
There's something comforting about that, but also right away you've got people who understand where you are. They know where you've been. And I can't think of a better group of people to ask how to get through this than someone who's already, you know, made their way through.
Right. You don't get many raised eyebrows when you go to a meeting, whether it's NA or AA.
No.
You're not going to surprise anybody.
No.
Certainly not going to frighten anybody.
But that sense of community.
Come on in, sit down, have a cup of coffee.
But it feels good. It feels warm. It feels like you're safe, and that's the feeling that little pill I used to take did for me. That magic in that pill that no longer worked was, you know, that feeling of I belong here. I'm not alone.
We got an analogy for that. That's sort of like battlefield triage. That's the first application of the program right there, to lessen that, make you feel at peace. Not really at peace, but at home.
At ease.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
come
at
on
ease.
in.
Yeah, come on in.
So that made it easy to want to come back. And as time went on, the things that they told me would happen were starting to happen. Well, I can't think of any better reason to come back. They're saying, do this and it'll work, and it works. Well,
Right.
Give me a little more of that. So as time went on...
Well, it's like an addiction,
sure.
except it's good for you.
That's right. That's right. But that was the same...
I'll have another shot of that. Yeah.
But there were things that happened during the course of it that I remember we had a trip to Disney World planned, and I thought, well, I can't do that. There's no way I could have fun again.
Yeah, who wants to go to Disney World? That would suck.
Well, but just that idea that there's no way that I'd be able to enjoy myself. That how could I ever have fun again? Well, lo and behold, that people told me to do these things, and I had the time of my life.
Yeah, you can get a different life out of it. I'm your sponsor, but you started with a gentleman in NA.
Yes.
And how'd you come across that guy?
Well, it was at a meeting, and as time went on, he was known as the guy who liked to sponsor people. And I said, well, let's give this a go. So we started that process, and I enjoyed it. I've had to travel quite a bit for most of these meetings, so that's a little bit of a challenge. But that relationship got good, and we started working together. And then, unfortunately, COVID hit, and then things changed markedly. And during that process, he passed. So.
And you said remarkably. How so?
I mean,
You got better.
yeah, I got better. I got through this initial shock to the system that I had destroyed everything, and that nothing that I ever did now is worth anything.
Offered hope.
Right, offered hope, and
Not false hope, but real hope.
real hope.
If it can happen for you, maybe it could happen for me. You know.
That's exactly it.
We got a caller online, Mike. If you want to jump on here, I guess a gentleman by the name of Wade has called us in here a minute, and he'd like to speak to us.
Hey, Wade, what you got on your mind, sir?
Do I need to? Hey, that sounds familiar.
No,
I had a few of those when I was trying to get a second job.
you still there, Wayne? I tell you what, can you call back on the other number, 616-754-1063?
All right, well, we had false hope there, folks.
Oh, okay.
Wade's gonna try harder.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like us.
Yeah, for some reason it kicked over to the second line, so
So-
we can't get you on the air.
Anyway, folks, what I know is that Jim was looking for a sponsor, and he showed up at Rebo's. And after a few discussions, we started working the steps. And I don't want to take any credit for what God's handiwork was, but God put you in my life at a time when I was able to listen. That's about all there was to it. The book had all the instructions about what to do.
Yeah.
Finding time for this guy to listen is a monumental thing, because he's on the move most of the time.
I careen about the countryside in my car.
He does.
Continental Cruiser.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, what we did was we went through the steps. We met at a point between where Jim lived and where I did. And, we went through the process. And then he went back to his neck of the woods up north. What did you do with that stuff, Jim?
Well, I took that stuff up to Cadillac, and that's where I started going to those NA meetings. And one of the things that I've noticed when it comes to the two different
And
groups,
that stuff, meaning your spiritual experience as a result of the steps, right?
yes, absolutely.
I want to make sure that we're
Yes, that's a
our,
good point. Yep.
Our folks out there listening are understanding
Yeah.
what you're actually carrying with you.
Well, it
Not a
was
thought,
my
not an
obligation.
idea,
Yeah,
but what you'd actually done.
yeah, it was my obligation at some point to take what you're sharing and run it up 131 to Cadillac.
Or wherever you're
just
going.
to spread,
yeah.
to spread the word, right? And with that said, there's a whole community up there that is starved for that sort of direction. I think it's the difference between the two groups that I've observed is that AA has people that are a little more industrious when it comes to recovery sometimes, people that do a little more of the reading. But I will tell you, when I'm at an NA meeting and someone shares a quote from the NA book, I get this little tingly feeling inside.
There's hope.
That's right, there is hope, and they are doing the work. It's just there's a difference sometimes in because of some of the stigma, especially
Right, because the stigma's been built in over time.
Yep.
And one of our goals, like I said, is to scratch away at that some and try and reduce that, because addiction is addiction.
Yeah.
Whether you're addicted to alcohol or
Right.
opioids in your situation,
Right.
or nicotine, or whatever it is. We can't get better feeling bad about ourselves.
No.
You don't have a chance. So we need to lessen that and say, okay, now what? And that's what you did.
Yeah. I'd like to share something with our audience about the NAAA experience. Where we're generally at, it's quite a rural, spaced out, spread out area. And while there's a lot of good sobriety, good recovery in that area, it's not concentrated in any one area. That's partly why Jim came to me as an AA guy for a sponsor, is because in his travels he wasn't crossing paths with somebody on a regular basis. It's not that it isn't there, but it's just that that's the way it is in a rural community. That's part of what we do with this program, is try to let you know that stuff is available.
Yes.
That stuff is recovery, redemption, and a full, happy, joyous, and free life.
Yeah, it's available in the rural communities, you know, as if we search for it.
So that's the stuff Jim was taking back, was recovery, to show folks that it is possible.
I stumbled across some folks up there in Cadillac, and I know what you speak of. My work takes me different places, different times, and I recall my time there, yeah, and I can concur with your assessment. But here you come,
Yeah.
with a different idea.
That's right.
And it says one man with a book in his hand can change the lives of countless others.
Yes, sir. Can't transmit something you don't have.
That's a quote.
Yeah. And that's part of what Jim's doing, is taking that message. And he gets to carry a slightly different message than some people can, because he got some help from an AA guy. And what I've reminded him is that this problem is a God-sized hole in our heart. And in the initial parts of addiction, it looks far different, because our shakes and rattles and head games are quite different. But after a little while, we kind of stabilize. It's all the same thing. We got a hole in our heart only God can fill.
And
Yeah.
that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
That is.
And it doesn't happen by itself.
Yeah.
You need to make some discoveries along the way.
Yeah. And while I'm on a roll here, I
go ahead.
got to remind you that they talk about this program being a spiritual program. And the difference for a guy like me between spirituality and religion is spirituality is what I do. Religion is my faith, is what I believe. So this is all about doing something about something. And that's the stuff we carry.
Repetitively and continuously.
Oh, that one. Like once you start praying, don't stop.
You know, it's built in that way.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, back to Jim. When you carry this message up north on 131, have you had the opportunity to sponsor a few people along the way?
Well, I've given it a good go.
Good.
I've given it a few tries. I imagine I've had somewhere between 4 or 5 people where we've sat down and started. I've got it as far as the 4th, 5th step with someone, and then they go back out to test things out to see if they're any different.
See if the car drives a little
Yep,
different.
That's right. And like you taught me, I always share with them, just make sure you report back and tell us how it worked out.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, we need confirmation.
Yep. Well, as luck has had it, a number of these people have come back, and they're saying it's no better out there.
It's kind of like gravity.
Yeah, it's no better.
So you're able to show them that you work the steps and you do have a life again.
Yes, I do. It's sometimes it's hard to believe that it is. You know, it's that feeling of euphoria that everything is just the way it's supposed to be, and it's back. So yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's that restoration, not only to sanity, but physical well-being.
Oh yeah.
Spiritual fitness increases a bit. You know, and life gets a little different for us.
So when you cross paths with somebody at that grocery store,
Yeah.
do you look at that as, oh my gosh, or is that an opportunity?
Well, there's always an opportunity, but I guess the thing about all this is that sometimes I think I can be off-putting because I'm brutally honest about how things went down. That, you know, there was no sense of sugarcoating it or making it sound you know, like this was some planned redemption story. It wasn't.
Right. It was earned.
It was definitely earned.
You earn the consequences. You get to earn the benefits of becoming a recovered person
That's
as
exactly
well.
it. Right.
You know.
So, but like I've told you though, when we talk about, you know, recovery, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And I feel sometimes that, you know, I've seen people do I go to a meeting now and then kind of stuff, never work the steps, and and you sort of like have a first year, 5 or 6 times in a row, or, you know what I mean? And I see that, and I would just,
Frequent flyer.
that's right, and I see those things, and I'm saddened by it. But in this thing, recovery, I don't know why you wouldn't get your hands on all you could, take in as much as possible, and try out new things, see if it works for you.
What I had noticed a little bit was that some people they do like half measures,
Oh yes,
and they don't get the benefits that
That's right.
you did.
That's right. Well, that's the thing we've talked about, insurance, right? Talked about the insurance. What kind of insurance do you want in your life? Do you want PLPD,
Right.
right? Or do you want full comprehensive coverage? Right.
Boy, when I had comprehensive, it was a good thing. Remember I told you I careened about the countryside? It's a good thing at times.
You exercise your insurance.
Yes, sir.
But I would ask anybody, why, if you've been through this already, why would you take a chance? Why would you put yourself in a situation where you could ever find yourself back in active addiction or back in being an alcoholic and having that desire to drink again? Like, do the things they tell you to, and you won't have that struggle.
Right. Well, similar to what you described about being on the cruise and
Yeah.
being irritable, restless, discontent.
Yes.
That's what awaits a person who wants to return to, an addictive lifestyle. And I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me today. It hasn't for a while, but I'm curious. But I also understand that everyone's entitled to their own experience, whatever that may be.
Even if it looks ugly to you at times.
Yeah, it comes out sideways sometimes, but they're entitled to that, child of God, all that good stuff. So all we can try and do is sometimes just be a decent example and share some of the things that we've learned along the way, and let God do what God does. So speaking of that, Darren's telling me I got to take another break.
A power greater than
He has a
yourself.
power grabber. He's got his hands on
Oh,
the buttons and the
jeez.
dials, and I'm going to just clear out here for a minute.
I'm not the Pope.
Thank God. We'll be right back here with you. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you here back real quick.
So the Pope worked in Peru, and this guy worked at, where was that place down in the east south side of Grand Rapids?
Parkway Tropics.
There you go. Okay.
Frequent flyer.
That's why he's not the Pope.
He knows everybody by name.
I worked there for 25 years as the disc jockey.
There's a guy I know.
Wow.
And he doesn't know her, but he met Susan over the years there.
Impressive, huh?
Yes.
He's got a master's degree at a school you weren't even allowed to go to. He couldn't have passed a fucking bar.
Not a chance.
Uniquely crafted.
Somebody needs to be the king.
25 years, huh?
Yep.
Perseverance.
Dedication.
One day at a time.
What's that pension program look like?
What pension program?
I'm just curious.
Oh, shit.
So we lost weight, I imagine.
Yeah, he came in online too for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay.
He wants to come on the show to talk about his experience. 28 years sober, August 10th.
Okay.
And he's been going to AA since the 70s. He listens to the show every week.
Perfect. We'll give him a call.
Yeah.
Did you know
you go.
that Central Michigan
So,
I love people
you've been
who reach out.
uniquely crafted for what you're doing today.
Yes.
That might be where we're headed today now.
Good. Yeah.
We touched a little bit about your helping in NA, AA stuff, but this is what you're doing with it out in the world. I don't
Do
know.
we want to touch on, do you have a new employer?
Just ignore the phone. I'm going to see what's going on, why it's
Social
not.
worker, gentlemen.
Social worker, okay.
We'll go with
Yeah, I
it.
don't want
Social
to.
worker. I don't want to bring the age.
No, that's what I mean.
It's a WGLN.
Well, that's bizarre. It came in on line 1, like it's supposed to.
Sunday, a high today of 71.
Well,
Skies overnight tonight, a low of 44.
you're the technology
Mostly sunny
wizard.
today
Go
on
for it.
Monday, a high near 80.
I don't know why he came in on mine too. That was weird.
Overnight showers Monday night, a low
Because
Because that's a different phone number.
cloudy skies and afternoon
That's a good
showers
thing.
today
Yeah.
on Tuesday, a high of 77.
Oh, just a hiccup.
5 seconds.
Now, more of the
They're
music
calling
you
up
love
Chris
on
and you.
WGLM.
Not yet. I give him plenty of time. I know they don't give him opportunity.
It's early yet.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, Mike, and Jim back here with you on Continuous Miracle. And we're glad you're here. We wanted to mention real quick, too, Spotify. We should be up on Spotify later this week as well. So we're branching out here a little bit, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Are you going to be okay with that, Mike?
I don't know if I'll make any sense of the whole thing, but I think I'm going to be okay.
All right, don't get scared. It'll be all
All
right.
right, well,
And sitting here talking with Jim a little bit further, and we talked a little bit about what brought him to the recovery community, and then what he encountered when he got here, and that's been about 6 years now. And then today, his life has turned around dramatically. Obviously, he forfeited his previous career, and he embarked on another career.
That's right.
Is that correct? Yeah. And this career is about helping people, because he found something that he probably lacked a little of before he got to the recovery community, and that was some empathy and some understanding of other folks' plights right here in Michigan, around Michigan, not just the mid-Michigan area, but that's where we are, and it's what you're doing today, and that's to help youth, help kids, right?
That's correct. When I was in rehab, first got there. A doctor told me, he's like, "You're going to help more people than you can imagine," and I didn't understand that.
Well, you didn't believe him.
No,
Start there.
No,
Yeah.
what could I possibly have to offer the world that's
Right.
world's biggest loser? How I'm going to make this better for other people? Well, as it turns out, this skill set works really well with social work. And
Absolutely.
and being able to first of all recognize certain behaviors, understand the language, understand the reservations people will put forth as to why they should, why they use that. They want the justification, and they want you to back that justification. They you hear all these stories, but you sit through these meetings. I've heard all these stories.
Not only that, but you lived them.
I certainly did.
You haven't heard them, you lived it.
Yep.
So it's easier for you to identify some of the situations you encounter where things aren't the way probably they should be.
Sure.
so as a social worker dealing with children, it's not so much their addiction as the adult's
No,
addiction that's in the supervisory role that you deal with.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Is that you
Right.
see, you could. It's so easy to see it now. You wouldn't be able to do it otherwise if I hadn't gone through this. Where, why isn't someone willing to drug screen? Well, I mean,
Yeah, why wouldn't you want to do that?
right. So,
Do you have a
it
good reason?
doesn't take a genius, but it's the are they really interested in recovery, or is this just a neat backdrop when I'm on my Zoom hearing for court when it comes to custody of my children?
Ah, yes.
So
Yeah.
and then you'll recognize too that 2 or 3 days after this hearing we've quit. We're coming back home.
Oh.
The ruse didn't work. We were gonna
Right.
we were gonna fool everybody and we were gonna get this done. And I am always wondering why you would only do a half measure. You're already at the facility. Why don't you just do what they say?
Well, and then it's a common theme, though. And it's like you spoke of it, denial or outright rebellion, or pick
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
Mike was like that. We watched him
Outright
fight.
denial.
Yeah,
Recalcitrant teenager type.
yeah, and rebellious. We just let them be. Okay, go ahead, have it your way.
But it is frustrating when you're in this position though, and you know what the answer is, and you explain this to people, and they still they're not buying it. And there are times where I'm sure that my employer isn't thrilled about it, but I will let people know about my story. I can't think of any other way to get people to truly believe that it's possible is to share my own.
And that's where I think you've been uniquely crafted, Mike. Like I say, but
Yeah.
and I
Well,
can,
that's true.
I can agree with it. Yeah, one of the few things I agree with. But it's when we share a personal experience, okay, with somebody who's afflicted, that has depth and weight. Full stop. And that happens in these meetings and
Certainly does.
certainly in what you're doing these days. So I thank you for bringing forth your experience trying to help other people when they're not even involved in a court type
Right.
situation. Well, I don't know the situations,
Right.
but because that is how. That's the how.
Mm-hmm.
Honesty, open-minded, and willingness, and being able to share that freely
Sure.
with somebody who's doesn't even realize maybe the situation they found themselves in.
Right. Well, at the same time too, though, when it comes to people not understanding why you want to share that story, I can't get mad at them for not understanding that.
No.
I can't get.
No.
I don't get frustrated with it, but it is sometimes frustrating when I work with people who are pushing some of these other ideas of recovery. Now,
Sure.
Now there are other ideas, and it's hard for me sometimes to accept it because mine went so swimmingly.
Right.
That there are these other ways. But the one thing that I know is that those other ways don't fill up stadiums once a year for an event of people who are suffering the same malady.
It's
you know.
true.
So there's an entire community out here that's willing to be there
Fills
for
up
you.
stadiums.
That's right. They're willing to do whatever it takes to help you to recover. And why wouldn't you take that hand to get up out of that hole? I'm mystified sometimes, but
And that's the what and where of it. We don't know.
That's
There's
right.
things we don't know.
That's right.
And we never will. Probably not designed to.
For a guy like me, I really had to admit that I had that problem before I could do anything about it, and I was in that kind of denial for the longest time.
Yeah.
I'm certain it works that way with other people.
No, you've encountered it.
Oh, yeah. I work with a lot of men, and I've seen that. Oh, it's a consistent theme.
Yeah.
But I recognize it because that was my theme too. I was in denial about where I was at until I wasn't.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned earlier. If you go to a recovery community event or whatever, you're not going to raise any eyebrows, and you could be right where you are, and you'll be fully accepted. Come on in, and people are there with outstretched hands to try and be helpful best as they know how. And that's a pretty neat community to be involved in, actually.
I would have to agree. I
It
would
is.
definitely have to agree.
Yeah, it's around the globe. Did I tell you we're on Facebook today? And we're talking about stuff on how we've gotten better, how Jim's gotten better, and been restored to from a former public official to a person who reaches out and helps people in the community who are suffering from addiction and helps protect children and give those kids a fighting chance. So that doesn't sound much like a continuous miracle. I don't know what does. I'm staying ready to be corrected.
Oh, I agree with you. I see it quite often, and it's
Yeah.
a fine example of how that works.
I got no complaints.
All right. No thanks, God. I'm good here.
So you're saying there was some spill over into your private life? That got a lot better too?
It certainly did. It got markedly better fast. So, and granted, there was about a 6-month period on the couch. I think it was.
I recall you mentioning
Yes,
that.
yep.
Yeah. I'm glad that time has passed for you.
Yeah,
Oh, he
And your
says he
spouse.
can still
And your
return
spouse.
there for a moment when he says the right or wrong
Yeah,
thing.
sometimes
Oh,
I
yeah.
have a tendency. But they're much shorter in duration.
Kind of built in.
Yes.
That's why we have couches, right?
That's right.
You're telling me you're teachable.
Yeah, very, very much so.
Okay, that part.
Teachable. It's the learnable part that we're. We'll teach you. Can you learn? That's up to you.
I really didn't want to for the longest time.
Oh, I know. We watched you.
I was just happy in my own misery. I don't know. I was really happy, and I was stuck there, and I didn't know any better. So I was willing to let you know how it was going.
Yeah, it was evident, but we let you tell us too.
I've heard some things.
Please do. So yeah, so you're helping families now and folks and children. Wow, what a miraculous turn in their life, hey sir?
Yeah, I didn't think I'd never get to use the skill set again, and
You were wrong.
I was very wrong.
You're a frequent flyer on that.
Yeah,
Wrong again?
Yes, yeah. But I had a job in between those two jobs, and one of the things I had to do with the other job is we would oversee work from other companies, and often I'd find myself, let's say, like in tunnels under schools,
Right.
and I didn't like that at all.
Well, who doesn't want to go there?
I didn't like being there.
Jim, maybe?
But what I recognized was that it was sort of as a metaphor. It was the shrinking of my ego to fit everywhere.
Mhm.
And I feel like sometimes that's, we go through these things. Why did we go through this? Well, I look back now, and I was very claustrophobic. But we got to get things done. We still have to do the job. And I started to realize that, wow, if I listen to others and have that change in perspective as to why I'm here and what I'm doing, things will get really easy fast. And they did. They really did.
So you took this remaining teachable idea and moved it around and used it in a lot of areas.
Yes. Yep.
Well, it is applicable pretty much, they tell us, to everything, isn't it?
Oh, that part.
When practiced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that true in my life still today, that I'm still learning a great deal, and most of it comes from helping others. I try to help somebody with something, and I have to look inside myself to see why I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and I still learn an awful lot.
Kind of funny when he learns something new. I see the smoke coming out of his ears. Oh, do tell.
And you thought they were electing a pope up there.
Right.
No, it wasn't. It was just, I had an idea.
Yeah, Mike had an idea of smoke coming out of his ears. You run with that, Chief.
Okay. Well, we're running with it today.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. In case you hadn't noticed, you got three guys sitting here pretty happy, joyous, and free as a result of getting plugged into the recovery community and trying to do some of the things that we've learned along the way and trying to help other folks best as we know how as we go forward.
There's a
Having
community,
some fun with it.
I remember there's a community conversation up Ferris this Friday
That's
about
right.
a lot of those people
That's
talking
right.
about that stuff.
We're taking another road trip. I almost forgot.
Yeah.
On this Friday, if you'd like to, I think everyone's public's invited, aren't they?
Yeah, they'd like you to register at
Okay.
the Cameron website.
Yeah, go to the Cemren, C-E-M-R-E-N,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Website and log in there. Community Conversation, I believe it's called.
Conversation Day.
Conversation Day. And that'll be going on up at Ferris State University, and Continuous Miracle will be there.
Yeah, I
And
think
we'll be
it's
talking to some folks who are up there too.
like 8:30 till 12:30 or something like that.
8 to 12:30.
8 to
Or
12.
1:30. 8 to 1:30.
Okay. Road trip.
I wasn't even.
Road trip.
I knew it was in the morning anyway. Thanks for squaring me up there.
And what's that restaurant we like up that way?
The Rock.
The Rock.
Rock, yeah.
Oh,
I like to eat,
food.
folks.
Leave it to Mike. Yeah. they got a pretty good plate of food over at the Rock up there at Fair State. Well, we got all those young kids running around. They eat a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I didn't do bad.
No, Mike did. Mike.
I'd like to thank Jim for coming in to see us today. It's nice having you, Jim.
Honored to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, appreciate you coming, sharing your experience, strength, and hope. Not with just us, because we're familiar with it, but with the listening community out here. You know, folks need to know that this stuff really happens in real time, and people get better in real time in the recovery community and go on to live useful and productive lives. And it's just fascinating when you get a ringside seat to some of that stuff. You know, we get to see it, and that's why we call it a continuous miracle. And if you know anyone who's in the throes of addiction or has a problem, hit our website. There's numerous telephone numbers up there, and there is meeting places, and links to throughout the entire listening
Resources.
area. Resources, yeah, available to each and any one of us who wants to hit that website up and take a look at things. So that's why we put it there. Trying to be useful and helpful.
Trying.
Mike is digitally challenged, but it's okay, so am I.
I'm also steering challenged with the driving stuff to some extent.
You've improved a good deal.
I haven't hit anything in over 2 months.
You know, things are getting better out there, folks. You're safer. Mike's got comprehensive, so don't worry about
That's
a
right.
thing.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's true.
You got insurance?
Still,
Wow. Miracle.
Jim says that the work we do in AANA is our insurance against going back out.
That's right.
So I've got that insurance, and I'm working on that pretty regular.
Yeah, and that's a true statement, you know. Once you haven't, you put down the drink or drug for a while and continue is what they told a fellow like me.
Yeah.
You know, keep suiting up, showing up, trying to do the right things and see what God's got in mind.
Yeah. But I would encourage anybody who's going to be part of this community is to, do it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, come in with an open mind.
That's right.
You know, don't make us crack the skull again. It's easier that way. But hey, we want to thank you for being with us today on Continuous Miracle. And we'll look forward to being back next week again with you, right here on WGLM 106.3. And we'll bring Dangerous Darren back in with us so he can operate the dials. And maybe we'll get a couple calls next week. Gentlemen do want to hear from us, and we want to hear from you too. So we'll talk to you next week. Scott out.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it didn't hurt, did it?
No, not at all. I figured it'd be about that easy with you two.
We try and make it easy.
Yeah.
I like that beat.
That is a good beat, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Michael Jackson.
I like that part where it goes up. So, this gentleman wants to